So today we are tackling a topic about starting solids. We are speaking with Sister Samantha Crompton. So Samantha, thank you so much for joining us
Always
today.
A pleasure to help moms.
Great. So maybe let's just start off and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your qualifications and your background and what you do with babies.
Absolutely. So I'm a registered nurse and midwife and an SATL lactation consultant. And then a lot of people say, well then what's that got to do with food and starting solids and stuff? So just to give you an idea about the scope. So as a lactation consultant, the idea is to create sort of healthy eating. I'm sure you've heard of the 1,000 days.
Yes.
So it's almost like healthy eating in pregnancy, plus then the baby's breastfeeding, healthy eating that side, and then getting them into a healthy eating pattern. So our scope sort of goes from pregnancy all the way through to weaning and once they're on solids. So obviously if you have very specialized diets, if the babies have got severe allergies, stuff like that, then you definitely need to go see a nutritionist, a dietitian, pediatricians who specialize in that. But your average, healthy, normal baby, we want them eating happy and healthy, and that's where our goal is.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's great because I think to a large extent, we met through me wanting to get the breastfeeding journey started off correctly. And I think having that transition, from breastfeeding into solids is really quite a sometimes daunting one for moms as well. So when it actually comes to starting solids, what are the most common questions that people ask you?
I think the biggest thing is when. That's the big thing. And also, I think the when is also a big question because it's changed so often through history.
Yes.
So I've been watching lots of medical videos the last sort of lockdown, and the doctors always say that people moan because we flip-flop all the time. We say, and my dad always moans, it's like eat butter, then eat margarine,
yes.
and then eat avos, then don't eat avos, that sort of thing. So we always stick to the when we know better, we do better. That's how science works.
Sure.
So it's continuous, we research, we do things. So I think that's the big question, because if you see graphs like early 1920s, people were only starting solids around 12 months. And then when Gerber and convenience foods and all that happened, we started at 6 weeks.
Goodness.
3 to 6 weeks,
Yeah.
because sales were better then.
Yeah.
And now we're back to 6 months, and then
Yeah.
when some of the allergy trials came out, they dropped it to 4 months, and now we're back to 6 months again. So I think if people read a bit, if they hear things, it's confusing because their mom's saying 3 weeks, their nurses are saying 6 months, and their allergologist is saying 4 months. It can be very daunting for moms. So I think that's the biggest question that they have.
And that's quite an interesting one because that's something that also when you just look at anecdotal and narrative, what's happening on the Facebook groups, for instance, that is exactly what people are asking the whole time, because my ped suggested I have to start at 4 months, and then it's like no, other people saying no, but their gut and digestive system is not quite ready yet till 6 months and you have to. So I'm not sure what those magical switches are that happen at specific ages, because I think that's kind of a larger conversation of saying like, oh look, my baby's actually gone from 5 months to 6 months today, so therefore there's a magical switch, which I don't think always is great. So in general, what would your answers be to those questions?
So my number one thing is each baby is an individual. Okay, so I hate things that say exact dates, exact weights. I don't like this. So we like to look at the baby's developmental area. Okay, because some babies develop much quicker than other babies, and some babies take a little bit of time, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I think we have to respect that. So I teach moms the developmental side. We're looking at tongue thrusts. We're looking at are they sitting unassisted. We're looking at are they grasping for things. What's their hand-eye coordination looking like? Those type of areas. And nutritionally, we look at what are their milk feeds doing. What is their weight looking like? Are they moving around? Are they extending the energy?
Yeah.
Because if they're not using up that energy, then do they need to? And I see a baby for an hour maybe, but you're seeing that baby all day, every day. So if I give you guidelines like that, then you can give me a lot of information, we can look at this baby, and we can start to decide. Plus the parents have to be ready. That's another big thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And someone to jump in as quickly as possible and that's fine, but others need some time to get their head around this, and also 4 to 6 months is when everyone's going back to work these days, so a lot of things happen at the same time. So we take everything into account when we have this discussion, and I don't think it should be a set weight or date or anything. I think it needs to be, this is all the information, let's look at your baby and let's make a plan for your baby.
Perfect. No, and I think that actually makes a lot of sense. And you know, I'm a big believer that you need to find something that fits into your lifestyle, and as much as babies throw that lifestyle out the window completely,
fits into baby's lifestyle.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's kind of like, what is the baby really needing, etc. And you touched on the whole idea about allergies, and this is exactly it, is that, you know, a lot of studies seem to show that you need to introduce the allergens between 4 to 6 months in order to address these and prevent those allergies or reduce the risk of those allergies. Whereas, you know, other studies is like, no, you know, you have to be at 6 months, etc. And I know we've just spoken about the, you know, the time period and things like the readiness signs, etc. But, you know, what would be your view around introducing allergens, and even if that is then before baby is sitting 100% unassisted, etc.?
So I usually look at the family history, and, you know, if the parents have got a strong allergy base, so, you know, the parents have got a severe peanut allergy, or, you know, anything that's anaphylactically a severe allergy, not an intolerance, because remember there's different allergies and intolerances. I'm not talking intolerance, I'm talking allergies.
Okay.
Then usually at around 4 months I prefer them to specifically an allergologist, and I think that baby needs a plan to prevent the allergies. So whether the allergologist decides them to introduce early, to do testing first, whatever, that baby definitely. Then a family who's got no real family history, but we have these atypical babies. These are the ones who constantly have eczema. You know, they've constantly got snot noses and sore throats, and anything that touches their skin, they react to.
Yeah.
You know, those atypical babies who, you know, we can see there's a good chance this baby's going to have allergies.
Sure.
Again, that's a baby I would refer and say, go get on a plan with a proper nutritionist, a proper dietitian, an allergologist, and do this thing according to this baby's needs. But I don't think those trials and whatever are aimed at everyone.
The general population.
At the general population. I think again we're back to look at your baby, see what your baby, look at your family history, see what's happening there. You know, and then once we know that, go have it, you know, go along this path. And then again, we're not generalizing, saying because allergies are big now, we need to throw everyone on solids at 4 months. You know, that's again a generalization, which I don't like. Because maybe that happy, healthy baby being fed at 4 months is now going to create something else that it wouldn't have had. Okay, so maybe it won't get the allergy, but
what else happens?
What else happens?
You know, I think you touch on such an important point, which is really important to me as well, is that, you know, everybody's got really good intentions. When you say my ped suggested X, Y, Z, or my, you know, mother who has raised 10 children, you know, suggests X, Y, Z, and, you know, really just rather see a specialist who knows what they do, rather than going on the Facebook recommendations of everybody as well, so which is really important. So in terms of starting solids, what are the kind of things that you would suggest people look at before they start? So are there things like, you know, courses that they need to do, or
so obviously I would love everyone to have done a CPR course, but I want them to actually have done it when they were pregnant, in their early pregnancy, to be honest. And obviously it's something that needs to be refreshed every now and again, but I just think that's basic. And the reason we say that is because no child should be left alone eating. Okay, in fact, no human should actually eat alone, to be honest. I always tell people, you know, my 10-year-old son was eating a sucker walking down the Durban promenade, and he choked. So, I mean, who wouldn't let a 10-year-old have a sucker, you know?
No, sure, exactly.
I think it's always important to do that. And I do think, I like people to read widely. You know, I want people to read everything and then come up with their own plan. Okay, rather than, or speak to one person that they trust and have used all along and sort of stick to that plan. And to me, the best plan in the whole is your gut. when I always tell moms, if your gut says to you, if your gut, like we always
Pun
talk about guts,
intended.
yes. If your gut says to you that my child is hungry and it needs food,
Yeah.
then I think that's the best time to start. And
Okay.
if your gut says to you, listen, I think my baby could do it another month without, then listen to that.
Sure.
Because I think that intuition is very important with a little bit of
Background
knowledge
knowledge.
as well,
Yeah.
which
Right.
is nice. But
Yeah.
people stress a lot, and but me, I tell everyone just relax and
Yeah,
be
it'll
happy,
work
and
out.
it'll work out, and
yeah.
the babies will be fine. And, but I do think those few basic things are nice, and just read things, but read
Yes.
from good resources. That's the important thing,
Mhm.
and that's what I do. I mean, that's why I post all these resources. That's why anyone who comes to me, I send them resources that is good reading, and it's not just focused. We tend to read all of this.
Yeah,
and then come
and
up
then
with a plan.
decide which ones work for you. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I decided to go the Baby Led Weaning route with Alex, and I was a bit almost taken aback by a lot of the groups that I wanted to join to give advice. Was very much, oh, your baby has to be 6 months, and your baby has to do this, and you're not allowed to even give him a puree, because as soon as you give him a puree, he's going to get confused and he's not going to know how to chew, and you increase the choking hazard, and so there was just such strict rules around some of these groups that it becomes really intimidating to then decide, well, oh, shouldn't I rather just stick to the traditional method? And it seems to be, the information out there seems to be very much one or the other.
Yeah.
What are your opinions about that?
So I love the Baby Led Weaning principles, and that's why I sort of use a lot of their principles, but I don't believe it's all or nothing. You can do a hybrid approach. So as an example that I always give is, I say one of the principles I love about the Baby Led Weaning is that the babies are seeing the whole food.
Yes.
And that I love. So they're seeing the whole floret of broccoli. They're seeing the whole piece of butternut or whatever. They're seeing what the spinach looks like.
Yes.
So to me, that is using all your senses. So they're visualizing it, they're touching it, they're smelling it, hearing it. I'm sure they
Yes. Yeah.
the snap, crackle,
Yes.
pop, whatever.
Yeah. Or just the gobsmacking.
Yeah, whatever. So to me, that is a very good transition, because where I found we had problems is we pureed, and then suddenly we decided, because they got to an age, now we must give them the actual food chopped up. And the babies are like, I don't want to eat this. And part of me thinks because they don't actually know what they're eating. And then the moms will come to me and say, my child loved butternut and now I can't get him to put a morsel in his mouth. And then they get labelled as picky eaters. So what I like is do the visual, do the stimulation side. So if you're going to puree the butternut, that's fine, but then put 2 or 3 finger strips of that for the baby to hold and throw around and chew and smell and taste and whatever. And from a safety point of view, I love the Baby Led Weaning principle of, I always use a pineapple as an example. So you give her a piece of pineapple, you leave the prickly bit, you leave the white bit, you leave the nice yellow bit. And for me, the babies learn then, prickly bit's not nice, white bit's okay, but it's not the best, but I like the yellow bit. So when they're sitting in the flower bed, which I like them to do, and they pick up that rock, they're going to go hard, don't eat. Prickly leaf, don't eat.
Sure.
Might be confusion around the berry, but
it's
it's not perfect, but you don't leave them there. But I like that concept of that learnt behavior from that side. But to me, there's no harm then in giving a bit of puree as well, if that makes you happy.
Sure.
If it's a bit more convenient on the day. And if you've got that sort of hybrid approach, maybe to make your own issues feel better, you puree it and feed it to the baby. And then when they're sitting around the dinner table with you, then give them a few pieces to play with. So I don't think it has to be an all or nothing approach. And I think if you understand the principles of everything, then you can make good decisions.
100%. No, I think that's key as well. So one other topic which often comes up is that there seems to be this idea that sleep is linked to feeding, and I think this is also what encourages people to start feeding babies really early, and sometimes even encourages practices like mixing rice cereals or something into formulas or in bottles, etc. Can you maybe just touch on that and your thoughts around that?
Okay, so I don't know who linked sleep and food. I don't know who did it. But to me, it's not really linked. Okay, obviously it's linked when we have malnourishment. But that's the same as school. You can't learn if you're hungry. You can't sleep if you're hungry.
Sure.
But that is on the far end of the scale.
Okay.
If I could put it that way. I don't think that is majority of your social media moms or parents, if I could put it that way. So for me, it's not really linked. And I always use the example, after Christmas lunch, we all go lie on the couch, okay, because now we've eaten too much.
Yes.
We've overindulged.
Stomach is expanded.
But we don't sleep that well. Okay, we're lying there lethargic, but are we sleeping? And I always say, if you've had a huge meal and you go to bed that night, do you sleep well? You actually don't, but you're flattened. Okay, so I understand how they got linked, because, and I understand how tired your moms are. I promise I was one of those a few years ago. You're very tired and you'll grasp at anything to make it happen. And sometimes what happens is you feed your baby the first time and they do sleep, but that's because their body's figuring out this new thing that it's done. So I don't think the quality is there. The quantity may have been there, but I don't think the quality is there. And to be honest, it's not long lasting. It might be a night or two. And it can't be from the calorie side, because, you know, a boob or a bottle of milk formula from a calorie point of view has got a lot more calories in it
than
30 grams of butternut.
And then what would be ingested as well.
Yeah. And how much of that 30 grams of butternut did they actually eat?
Yeah.
So to me, I'm a bit like, I don't think it was the 30 grams of butternut that's now made them sleep beautifully. I think it's maybe the learning or the sensory, you know, their brains experiencing things. And it's definitely not long lasting, because it happens for 2 nights and then we're back to whatever sleep pattern you had. So I don't think it should be a reason.
Sure.
It should be a reason at all. Obviously there's a side sort of comment to that, in that when babies are demanding more and more and more milk feeds, they are going to be waking up more. Okay, so when they get into that age where they're like, my energy output is more, therefore I need my energy input to be more, and I'm starting to demand more and more milk feeds, they're obviously going to start waking up more.
But that's not at 12 weeks when there's a growth spurt. So
But
there are other signs as well, right?
Yeah,
so
so
that needs to be over a prolonged period.
So that's why we look at the guidelines and they say the baby needs to be demanding milk feeds for at least for more than 2 weeks. Because we've got to know, is it their leap? Is it their sleep regression? Is there what is it? Is it that mom went back to work?
Yeah, and I'm feeling uncertain.
And I'm feeling uncertain. I'm having a bit of separation anxiety.
Sure.
You know, so there's a lot of factors in this. That's why I don't think you can say, my baby stopped sleeping at 17 weeks, which we know is the 4-month
sleep regression.
That they talk about. So my baby stopped sleeping there, therefore I need to start solids. I don't think we can make that link. That's why it has to be everything.
Yeah.
You have to look at all the developmental things and see that your baby's got majority of those, and then do it. But I don't want you to feed your baby to make it sleep.
Sure.
Because then we head into what you're saying. Then we're giving rice cereal in a bottle at 3 weeks. And then we're giving, you know, we're just shoving. I mean, I heard someone say you make them full as a tick and then you won't hear from them again. And to me, that is increasing your SIDS risk thing.
Yes.
So that's not really, for me, a good thing. Because the reason babies wake up at night is a good reason. That's why we say the good baby isn't the one that sleeps all night. The good baby is the one that wakes up every 2 to 3 hours demanding your attention. That is the good baby, not the one that sleeps through the night. Because those are the ones we worry about more.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If they screaming for your attention all day, we're happy with those babies. You might
some
parents aren't always saying that the babies are fine.
But babies are fine.
Yeah.
Brilliant, right? So one of the concerns about starting too early has been this concept about the virgin gut. Now, you know, some resources talk about this virgin gut as, you know, in layman's terms, kind of like the gut hasn't quite closed yet, so basically if you start solids too soon, then a lot of that then just flows directly into the bloodstream. And then other resources refute that and say, well, that kind of gut closes off within days of birth. What have you read about this, and what are your thoughts around the virgin gut, and is it a concern?
So, full disclosure, I've never really gone into a lab and looked at guts. So mine is all about...
Good things sometimes, especially talking about food.
So mine's more what I've read, the different resources and everything like that, and where I base my sort of belief system on, and that's what it is, belief, because I haven't done the research myself.
Sure.
But what I've based my belief system on is I look at the South African HIV trials, okay? And what we found is mixed feeding in HIV positive moms can cause mother to child transmission. So for me, that links to the virgin gut discussion, because the parents are taught you either exclusively breastfeed, and by exclusively breastfeed we mean nothing
else.
other than
no
breast
solids,
milk,
nothing, no formula,
no water,
no top-ups.
no formula.
Okay.
Only medications are the only things, and even that has to be specific medications or formula feed. There's no middle ground here. And the reason for that is because the breast milk does create, I like to call it a waterproof, and I know it's not waterproof, but like a waterproofing over the gut, and then the minute you introduce something else, it does strip that away. So I've always taken it from, if there is mother to child transmission, when we add something else, there must be something to this virgin gut discussion for me. And what we teach our HIV positive parents is that you exclusively breastfeed for 6 months, and the moment you're going to start solids, you then need to switch over to a formula feeding.
That's very informative.
So
thank you. Yeah.
For me, that answered my question for me, but I don't think it needs to be something that like destroys
freaks everybody out.
And
Absolutely.
Freaks them out.
Yes.
So I teach my parents who had to give top-ups once or twice in hospital because of low sugar levels or something, that is potentially medication, because we're not going to let our baby's sugar levels drop too low.
No.
And as long as they're doing it from a thoughtful place, where they've had assessments, they're getting help to do what they want to do, whatever, then that was medication, and we can, it's the nice thing about a virgin gut is it can become virgin again, which is nice. So we can fix it.
Yeah.
All right, but the HIV situation that South Africa are great with HIV research.
Yes.
And that sort of made my decision with the virgin gut, where I prefer to say to parents, if you can, stick to the breastfeeding, but life happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So don't go tearing your hair out over something you gave.
So does that then mean that at a certain point, because surely even babies that are being fed by HIV positive mothers or parents would also need to start solids at some point. So does that then also mean that you have to wait a little bit longer before maybe introducing solids, so that virgin gut can stay virgin, if you want to call it that, for longer? Or?
So they do recommend not before 6 months, because they want the babies to have the benefits of the breastfeeding for at least 6 months. So the babies do breastfeeding for 6 months, where it's exclusive breastfeeding. There's nothing else added into that diet. And then at 6 months, then they start. The recommendation is starting solids.
The magical switch with all the readiness signs.
Yes. With all the readiness signs.
Sure.
But they're a little bit more strict in terms of their guidelines because of, or it can be a little bit later, but then it's the moment they start solids, they now need to
start getting
switch over.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, there's a lot of variables in that. It depends on their viral load, and
of course.
That's a whole
different
thing
discussion.
On its own.
Yeah.
But linking to the virgin gut, that makes me think there is something to the virgin gut.
Okay. All right. No, that's very
without having looked at it under the microscope myself.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what day it switches over.
No,
I don't know that.
Sure.
I really
Who
don't know
does?
that. I'm sure someone does, but
thank you. That's actually really informative. So Sam, any other thoughts around starting solids, advice to moms, etc., just to as a final word?
As I said, I think read a lot. Go with your gut, virgin or not, go with your gut, and gather all the information, and then ultimately do what you're comfortable doing. Because at the end of the day, you're the one doing it, you're the one implementing it. So I can sit here and tell you what to do. Your PE can tell you what to do. Your mom can tell you what to do, but you're the one who has to do it every day. And the other thing is slow down. Your baby's going to be eating for the rest of their lives, so this isn't a race. That is one thing I do see, is that people are so excited about it, and they add solids, and then by 8 months I'm getting a phone call to say my baby doesn't want to drink milk anymore. And milk feeds are still very important for the first 1 to 2 years. So don't rush this. Just calm, slow, and you know what? If you've started and the wheels fall off and you're not happy, stop. It's not an all or nothing.
That's actually good advice. That's really good advice.
Because a lot of people start at 4 months and then they regret it. So stop. And then start when you're ready again. The baby will be fine.
That's brilliant advice. Samantha, thank you so much for talking with us, and
Pleasure.
we'll link all Samantha's details down below in the description box. So if you do want to get hold of her, she's on Instagram, she's on Facebook, and really nice to just reach out. And as she said, great resources available. So thank you very much for watching, and give us a thumbs up if you like the video.